In today's episode, I sat down with Brad Harvey of Brad Harvey's Creative. Brad has done video work for Jenesis, for our company, for the last 15 years or so. And what we talk about today is how an independent insurance agency can utilize video to grow their agency. We talk about some pretty detailed strategies, how to get it implemented, some action steps, whether you're doing it yourself or whether you're outsourcing it. We talk about the differences there and when is a good time to outsource. I believe that every insurance agency needs to be creating video content. I think they need to have it on their website. I think they need to have a YouTube channel, and they need to have it syndicated in all the social platforms. I think we're going to talk about in this video the different types of video that you should do to make this simple and doable. So I want you to enjoy this. I hope this is a blessing to you. And here we go with Brad Harvey. Welcome to the Insurance Agency Success Podcast, the only podcast that helps insurance agencies grow their business while increasing their happiness and joy. I'm Eddie Price, founder of Jenesis Software and an agency owner for more than 30 years. I have started, bought, sold, and scaled agencies, and for the over the last 25 years, helped others do the same through Jenesis. On this show, you're going to hear real stories and proven strategies to help you streamline your operations, increase profits, and really enjoy the business that you've built. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do here at Jenesis Software, just visit genesissoftware.com, click on the orange button to request a demo. So welcome, Brad.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We've done a lot of these kind of things together over the last, we were just talking before the recording, 14, something like that, years. And this is, I think, the first time that I've kind of ever been, I've been the one directing the thing, right?
Usually I'm on the other side of this thing. So this is a little bit unusual for me to be asked the questions and have to come up with answers for them. So this will be a fun experience for me.
Yeah, I love it. So let's start, if it's okay. I want to talk a little bit about what we've done together over the last 14 years. But even before we start, actually, let me go back. I'd love to hear the history of Brad as it relates to this topic today. Then we'll talk a little bit about what we've done together over the last 14 years. And then I want to talk about things like where video's heading and where agents, independent insurance agencies have been using video, what they can do now. We'll talk about all that kind of stuff, some strategies and that sort of thing. But let's start out by refreshing my memory. I know a little, but probably not everything. Tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
It's fascinating. I mean, it sounds like kind of a bizarre background, but in reality, the things that I did prior to doing independent video work that I do now really just kind of led up, kind of build all the tools that I needed to be able to do something like this when this became possible to do. So I was actually a television newscaster for 25 years, a little more than 25 years. Spent the 90s out in Kansas City at a TV station there. I was in Cleveland, Ohio for really through the 2000s into the early 2010s. And throughout the last few years of that, from about 2004 on, I was kind of doing the side hustle of building something that would be my exit strategy. You turn 50 and your face falls off and it's time to go do something else, as I like to say. So, television is kind of unforgiving in that. And so, I thought, well, I'll start this kind of video production business 2004, and in a couple of years, I'll go independent on it, and that's exclusively what I'll do, and I'll get out of the business. Well, it was several years. As long as they were offering you contracts to stay in, you're scared to step out on your own to go do something. So that was kind of my situation. But throughout that last period of time, I was really seeing a lot of changes, not only the industry, but certainly the technology surrounding the industry. I think a lot of people who are kind of our era, I think I'm probably a little ahead of you actually in age.
Not much, but
just mean, I think, thank you. But I think people would find it just astonishing to know that there was a point in time where if you were going to watch anything video related, any kind of video that ever came into your house on a screen came from a broadcast entity, right? It came from over the air, it came across a cable, but it wasn't something that could ever just be independently produced by yourself, or even grabbing a phone and doing that. And the reason, we had internet technology all the way back into the mid 90s. I mean, I remember getting on the internet and you were able to do stuff, but it was painfully slow. It was one of those deals where you were trying to watch and just for a picture to download. So the whole concept, the whole idea of this ever being a place where you could put video and video actually be able to play and there be enough bandwidth, people said that could never happen. And it was about 10 years before it ever got to the point where it could actually happen. I remember if you had a 1 gigabit per second connection, that was like, wow, you're doing pretty good. Well, mine's a gig now. Mine is 1,000 times faster than what it was back then. And that's a yawn now. Right. That's not a big deal. So I was kind of seeing those changes happen. And I thought, well, I'll start my own production company that'll be something that I can do when I get out of television. And maybe I'll make content we didn't use the term content. I'll make television shows. I'll make documentaries. I'll make things like that for cable television or something. And little by little, though, I kept seeing, that if the internet gets fast enough, that is a conduit for people being able to push content across that little tiny channel. If bandwidth ever gets good enough that you could do that, then the sky's the limit. I mean, anybody who has a website has their own television station, basically, that's tuned to you 24/7, 365, right? It's something that, and people will come to you in order to be able to find out about you. So there was this huge difference then between the concepts of push marketing, which is what everybody did back in the day, right? So you had to push your company, you had to buy ads on television, you had to buy radio ads, you had to put billboards, you had to do all this stuff. And we still do a good deal of that. Push marketing, pushing your message out to the masses and hoping that there's somebody out there who sees it, needs it, is in the same area where you are, where they can actually use it. There's just a lot of sort of inefficiencies in that kind of marketing that the only pull marketing, sort of the other direction, where somebody's like, I need a plumber. And there was pretty much one conduit for that back then, and that was the Yellow Pages. So people would open up the telephone book and they'd look for the Yellow Pages and they'd find you. But the internet changed all of that to the point where now there's this pull marketing where they're already motivated. By the time they come to you, they've come to you and they know that they're, possibly doing business with you, and all you have to do is land them once they get to you. So I kind of saw all of this coming back. It's the only time I was ever prescient in my life where I was like, I kind of see where this is going. And if this ever got to the point where, in addition to your website, where you have pictures and it looks like a fancy magazine or something where people have to read all of the content, if there was a point in time where there was actually video, where they could push a button and have the person tell them everything about their business in a concise manner or explain to them things about their business, that would make all the difference.
So you thought about that, and you, after 25 years of being in TV news, then they kept kind of hiring you back contract. And then when did you start really doing your own thing?
So by 2011, I was like, you know what? My wife and I, actually by about 2009, my wife and I, plan your work and work your plan kind of thing. It's the same thing with your career. I always said that you want to be part of the thing that takes down the business that you're currently in, especially if you're in a technology or a communications related field. It's just a moving target. So it's always important to kind of be looking at your career like, okay, I want to stay relevant. I want to be able to do something beyond what I'm doing. So what is the thing that's going to basically take down the thing that I'm currently doing? And really, people who are younger have no clue that broadcast news used to be kind of a big deal, my kids don't even understand, it's like, I did this thing all these years, and they're like totally unimpressed, So it is kind of one of those things where I kept kind of holding on to the safety of having a regular paycheck before stepping out on my own. But it was like in about 2 years before we did it, my wife and I sat down and I wrote it out, and I said, here's the plan. Here's by this date, let's see what we can do about, this is when my next contract ends. Let's see if we can find a place where we want to live, right? Find a great school district. We had brand new baby, and then our son who was 8, so by the time he's maybe making a major change from like elementary school to junior high or middle school, that would be a good timing for that. So that was sort of part of the plan. So by 2011, and that's when we ended up moving down to North Carolina, because we were in Cleveland. And of course, weather. I mean, it's sunny and beautiful out there today. In Cleveland, it's going to be another 2 months before you ever see any sunshine, even for a single day. It's just gloom all winter long. So that was a big part of it. Finding a great school district, finding a wonderful place that we wanted to be. Always loved Charlotte. It was explosively growing. And it gave you kind of the best opportunity to be able to develop a career in an area that's quickly growing. So that was our plan. And man, we just, my wife was getting, wonderfully employed as a software consultant for the State Department of Education in West Virginia, and had been since I started in television all the way back when, so wherever we moved, they were able to keep her kind of, with a data line back in the day, and then the internet when that came along. So we had that, but man, stepping out and just kind of having the faith to do it, that was a challenge, especially you got 2 kids, So.
And most of the listeners of this podcast are right there. I mean, they either are doing it now or have done that, where they're starting their own independent insurance agency. So you said 2 different dates, though. You said 2009, 2011. When did you first start creating this content? When did you first start really making progress?
Because that was interesting. People were like, well, YouTube's been around since the internet. YouTube, is maybe the major platform that people think of when they think of like streaming content that people produce themselves and put on. Gosh, you're talking 2006, maybe 2008, something like that, before it even started. So there was this point in time where, again, when I kind of started doing some production work in 2004, it was all things that weren't really internet related because the bandwidth wasn't there yet. It wasn't fast enough quite yet to be able to do it. But within a couple of years, I saw that that's where the market was going, and that's where it's going to be. So having the flexibility to know, wait a minute, I can shoot it, write it, edit it, voice it, because this is what I've done for 25 years. For 5 o'clock this afternoon, if I can find clients that are needing online content, oh my gosh, I was one of the first people out there kind of to be doing that sort of stuff. And it was really because I just had a bunch of different talents. I didn't have to hire an editor. I didn't have to hire somebody to go shoot it for me. I didn't have to, have a script writer come in. I did those things every day in broadcasting. So I made that transition pretty much, and I do a lot of different kind of production work, but for the internet portion of it, which is really, I guess, probably the primary, overwhelmingly the majority of what I do, that was late 2000s. And then 2011 is when I'm just like, I'm doing this exclusively now, and it's worked out fine.
Which is about the time that we met. You and I, neither one are really sure. We could probably figure that out. We could probably go back and find something.
I'm sure.
First time we paid you or something, maybe.
Yes.
But I think it was 2011 or 12, somewhere along in there. And what we did, as I recall, so someone introduced us, because at the time, let me tell you this really quick. I don't know if you know this or not. Around 2005, we'll say, I went and bought, seems like it was a $1,200 camcorder that was big. It was a whole lot bigger than this. And it was a big old camera and had some kind of cartridge for tape in it. I don't remember. It wasn't a VHS, but a little smaller than that. Yep. And I learned how to use it well enough just by reading the instructions, I guess. And I would call up my customers And I think this kind of thing is segueing into how we met or what you started doing for us. And also, I also think it's useful for insurance agencies to think this way too, because I think case studies, testimonials, customer stories, whatever you want to call them, they're similar. Maybe testimonial is a little different than a case study, but I think they need to be doing them. And I want to get to how that can work for them, I think. But because I think the reason they don't is it could be a little bit they don't want to pay for it, but they don't have the time. They don't have the wherewithal. But so let me go through this quick story. Bought my camera. I called up a few of my customers at the time, Jenesis software customers. And I said, can I go out and do a little video to kind of get a testimonial from you? And did you know about this? I don't know if we ever talked about this.
No, I had no idea.
So I bought a tripod, which I kind of geek out on things like this anyway. So it was a little bit down my alley. Even though I should have been back running my business, probably. I probably should have been writing software or whatever it was should have been doing, selling software. But I went around to my customers and I would set up my tripod, have them sit at their desk. And of course, unlike you, I didn't know what I was doing. And set them up, put the camera on them. And I said, I don't remember, man. I don't remember if I gave them some bullet points or what, but had them talking to the camera and say what it was like using Jenesis. And then so I got that. Then I went back and I did, I think, two things with that. I got this guy that would burn, and it was not mass production, so it was expensive and slow because it's one at a time. But I burned it onto a DVD. And I would mail that to some people. Yeah. And I made a few sales by people watching the video. Isn't that funny? And then the other thing I did with it, because there was no YouTube to put it there and do anything with it, but I had a guy that worked with me that was good with this part. Chuck, I don't know. Do you remember Chuck? Chuck was with me for 17 years. You've done a video of Chuck.
I'm sure.
He was back.
Sure.
Chuck was a quadriplegic. I don't know if that helps you remember that, Chuck, but he was in some of those videos that you did for our team years ago.
Absolutely.
And he passed away in January of 2018 after being with us. He was my first employee. But anyway, Chuck, back in those days, he would take that video and put it on our website at least. So what I would do, Brad, when I would go out and show my software to people, I would say, before I show you the software, let me show you something real quick that I'm kind of proud of. And I would pull up the thing and show it on my computer, my laptop or whatever I had at the time. And it was just a little sales pitch from the customer, a testimonial. Then I would go into demoing the software, but it already, a little bit like you said earlier, even more so today, people are researching. People know you. They get to know your personality. They get to know whether they think they trust you or not, because they need to know, like, and trust you. And then they'll show up and consider buying from you. So I didn't plan it out. It was an accident, but I think that did some of that back in those days. It would show them the video and then I'd show them the product. So then I remember around 2011 or 12, when we met, I was telling a friend of mine at the time that I really would like to have someone that I could just contract. I didn't want to pay them full time, but that I could contract to go out, because it was taking too much of my time to go out, and it wasn't my area of expertise anyway. So I think we need to all protect and spend our time in the smartest way. So they introduced me to you, and the first quite a few projects we did back in those days was you going physically to my customers' offices, and a few of them we had come into a central location, like a place to do the footage of the shoot there. And you would just get essentially testimonials / customer stories / case studies, right? Of them talking about working with us. Is that similar to what you were doing at the time with other people? I know I would go to the movies. One last thing. I would go to the movies because we lived near each other at the time. We don't now. But I would go to the movies in Davidson yes. And I would sit down with my popcorn and they would run the commercials before the feature film. And I would see the footage and I heard your voice. Your voice was so distinct. I don't think I ever saw your face in those commercials, but they would be like legit commercials with this obviously very professional voice doing it. It would be Brad. So I thought that was funny. Yeah. But is that the kind of thing you did, what you did for us back then?
You know, it really was. I think you said testimonial, and you touched on something that's incredibly important. You mentioned when you're in the video, that's a critically important thing too. It's important that people see you and they make a connection with you. But nobody speaks more powerfully about working with you than the people who have already. And, that's why you have, reviews and even on Amazon where, half of them probably aren't even, some of them are fake, on Amazon, you still read them. And you're like, before you buy a product, you want to know, what was somebody else's experience like? So that is, incredibly important. And, there are two things that are really critically important for how people respond to information and how you kind of capture them. When we talk about the fact that we were talking about pull marketing, somebody goes looking for something, they Google like insurance agent for a city or whatever, and they were trying to find a very specific thing. And then they're looking for what it is that you do and they click on it. So you've pulled them in, right? So what do you do with them once you have them? And you want engagement and you want retention. And video is a very sensory experience, right? People will watch a video any day over having to read something any day, right? In my family, there are things that the people that I live with, they're kind of like, he knows a lot about a bunch of different stuff. So they just say, hey, Brad, and they'll ask me a question while we're sitting watching television. I'm like, why do you trust me? Just Google it or something. That's too much work, right? It's short attention span theater, really, to an extent, but people want to have this sense that they're having that information that they're looking for curated for them, right? And they don't want to do any of the research really themselves. And if they can just push a button and see you pop up talking about what it is that you're the expert on, and it presents you as the expert, then that's critically important. The retention portion of it is also enormous because they not only see your message, but they retain so much of it. There have been a lot of studies that are talking about how if somebody's watching something and then they have them read something, and their retention rate on reading it is about 10%, their retention rate on watching a video is 95% up to. Which is just amazing. It's like if you want to get the message across, that's one thing, but you wanted to keep it in their head as well,
right.
Afterward.
Oh, yeah.
And they're much more likely to do that with video.
Yeah, totally agree. In terms of how independent insurance agencies can use video, tell me what you think the list of ways, practical ways. I know there's testimonials. I think every agency should be getting as many testimonials, video, because they can always turn the video into audio. They can always transcribe the video into, written content for the website. Is there anything other? Well, then there's the thing where the agents own the camera too. So what's the game plan for an insurance agency using video?
It's myriad. And you kind of think of it as almost triage for, how a particular agency, if they don't have any content at all, like, where do you begin? Well, generally I say, have something that's got you on it so that they can make that emotional connection with you. And also, there's a photo of somebody on their website, right? But you can't make people are almost intimidated really more than by photos. They're almost intimidated by them more than they're make a connection with them. But if they see a video of somebody, they're seems like a really nice guy or nice, which I know that sounds kind of thin, but in reality, everybody wants to work with somebody who's easy to work with, who's going to solve their problem. So I think having some of that content where you actually introduce yourself is really, really important. Maybe 3 different things, start with that are testimonial, that are driven by customers that have worked with you, they've worked with you and they have wonderful things to say, catch those people and put them out there. But now it opens up into a huge variety of things and so many places to put them. It's not just YouTube, it's not just your website, all of the different social media now there's so much opportunity out there for you to just, again, you're kind of back into that push sort of thing, but just getting your face out there and thinking about like what I would used to call like sidebar things, because on a lot of websites back in the day when people would design websites, they'd have sort of a sidebar that was like frequently asked questions, and things like that. But answering whatever those questions are that people ask you all the time, that's a fantastic opportunity to do something really nice and short that somebody will watch, that'll answer that question for them, make you the expert again on whatever that topic is. But also at the same time, it kind of takes some of the load off you, because you may be hearing those questions all the time. It's a great thing to have that question already answered by the time somebody does come to you. So if it's a complicated subject, you're the expert. You can break something down into language that they understand, that if they're trying to read it, or maybe it's kind of a complicated case, you're trying to put together coverage for something that's really sort of a little complicated. And, how do you differentiate yourself from other people that are offering things? And we've just kind of gone through this with some car insurance here recently, where we didn't understand. Okay, so these people say that, the towing includes this, and these people say that roadside doesn't include this, and how are you doing apples to apples and all that? All of that kind of information is something that you can really, if somebody asks you a question, you keep hearing that question, it may be obvious to you as the agent.
Right.
But for those folks that are out there that are just trying to navigate through stuff that they only have to deal with a time a year, once a year.
Sometimes once in their lifetime that they have to deal with that question.
Yeah. So, those are there. So anything you can think of really that you think that, I'd like to, think about how you interact with other businesses. It's like, I would just love to see something about this topic. I'm sure there are tons of those things about your own business that you could come up with that are just tiny little pieces of content. Even, they're hugely produced stuff, right? That looks $1 million, and professionalism is an important thing. So it's important that you look professional. People do judge you on these things. But at the same time, it's really easy to grab a phone if you have a little bit of just like social media content that you want to do. If you want to put something on X, or you want to put something on Facebook, just little shorts or whatever, there's nothing wrong with just grabbing a phone and say, hey, people are asking me about this all the time. Put the selfie cam on and it says, here's the quick answer to that, blah, 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 and then post it. Post it as something that can go regularly onto your Facebook feed or your social media feeds or whatever. But it can take a minute and a half to do it. It doesn't have to be a big production.
Right. So then what I heard is two things. I heard the best way, there's two major ways for an insurance agency to use video. One, they should be recording themselves and or their team members. If they're the agency owner, that's probably ideal. But if not, there could be other voices of the business. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Correct me if anything you want to straighten me out on. But they need to be recording, getting their personality out there, and doing that by maybe answering questions that are kind of FAQs. The second thing they need to be using video for is for customer testimonials, to get their customers to say nice things about working with them. And by the way, in my experience, when you get a good customer to say nice things about you, true things, but when they do the testimonial or they tell their story about working with you, I believe your retention with the customers that you engage in that kind of relationship with, I think your retention of those great customers increase, because that's building a stronger relationship with them too. If an agency owner is watching this and they're saying, okay, I believe it's probably good for my business. I think long-term, if I will be consistent, they got to be consistent, right? I think I buy this, that it would be good for me to kind of do my sales pitch, or, be known, not just do my sales pitch, be social and be useful through video consistently for a long period of time and get these testimonials. I think what they might be thinking, if they're sitting there watching this right now, what's going to happen in a minute when this video is over? When they finish watching this podcast, are they going to do anything? And what are they going to do? Because you said one option is they get their phone, and one option is just as simple as a selfie and say, hey, I had a customer come into my agency today and they had this question. It's a really good question. They thought it worked like this. In reality, here's a couple interesting things about that question. and they kind of just be themselves, I believe, don't you?
Yeah,
and don't necessarily script it and try to be fancy and go put on a different suit than
Yes,
don't put on a different suit than what they've been wearing. Whatever they're wearing all day is fine, but then they get it out. Now the next thing the agent may say is, what do I do with it? And what's your answer there? Is it, I mean, but here's my question, I think, Brad. There's the dilemma, and my story is a good one. At first, I did my own videos. And I got Chuck to put them on our website for us. Then I decided a few years later, I would rather just pay someone because they would do it better than me. And I don't have to set it up. And I can keep doing the thing I'm doing over here every day. What are your thoughts there? How does an agent watch what we're talking about today? What's their deciding factors after watching this podcast?
I think there are experts at this. There are people out there that'll solve your problem exactly the same way you solve the problem of those people that are needing insurance, right? And it is fairly complicated, and you don't want to hear that, but it can be pretty complicated getting, content out there in a way that optimizes your searches. We'll talk about that. I want to make sure that we talk about that before we get away, because that's another key critical element. But I think, there are people at Jenesis that are experts at knowing how to do social media, to reach out, to be able to do these things. And I mean, I would think that there's the production of the content sort of on one side. So you got stuff, but then what do you do with it? It can be as simple, if you want to, so the gateway is to be able to kind of use social media. If you got a Facebook page, and you're wanting to make sure that you're, just kind of putting good stuff out there on Facebook, it can be harder to sit down and think of a post, and write it out and maybe come up with a picture or something that goes with it. It can be a lot harder to think of something to do than it is to do like we were talking about, where you grab your phone and say, I had a quick question today. Let me answer it real quick for you. 30 to 60 seconds, just like that. That can kind of be the gateway. But at some point, search engine optimization is also a moving target. That means that when somebody searches, for insurance in Forest City, North Carolina, I just keep saying that because I remember your original title,
right,
Forest City.
Right.
What do they see? Do you come up on the first page? Critically important stuff. And one of the things about that is just making sure you have something on your website, some video on your website, because that is a thing that most people Google things. They don't go to Yahoo, they don't go to other search engines. It's
and ChatGPT now.
And ChatGPT. And basically, when I do a Google search, I always see the AI overview first and so forth. And that's pulling from somewhere.
Right.
But Google themselves say that your chances of having something show up, your company show up on the first page of those results, which is what you want, is 50 times greater if you have video on your site.
Really?
Now, not 50%. It's 53 times greater. That's how they do their little bots that determine whether or not they move you up in the list. They also say that just increasing traffic to your site, if you have it on there, is up to 80%. So, I mean, I think a starting point is just having it on your site. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to have it on YouTube as the platform, so it actually exists there. All of the videos on my website, they live on YouTube, but, you just kind of, when you're designing your website, it's a little, you just cut and paste kind of a little code in there, and then it shows up on your website like it's native to your website, but it's actually playing off the servers from YouTube. And that's great for the bandwidth on your website, but it's also great for that search engine optimization as well. So, I mean, from the beginning, make sure it's on your site. Do as much a little social media as you can personally do without it just killing you, because you got to run a business at the same time. But then at some point, it really makes sense to, as you grow your business, it does make sense to go to a professional who knows how to do those things, because, that's a full-time thing, as opposed to producing the content. it's a full-time thing for people to know really how to get that optimization going.
I agree. And I think there are agencies that we work with that are one-man operations or one-woman operations, and there's some, so their income is pretty small. And then we have some that, a $35 million agency comes to mind that was a guest on my podcast the other day that's a customer. So big range. So I think these smaller people, if budget does not allow, they should force themselves once a week. I'm big on putting things on my calendar, having checklists. So I think they need to make themselves once a week, record some answer to a frequently asked question, put it on YouTube. That's easy to do. It's easy and free to create a YouTube channel. It's easy and quick to put it up there. And for now, don't even edit it, right? Just you are who you are. Don't worry about editing
Absolutely.
it. And put it on YouTube, and then either you, the agent, or that they got somebody managing their website. Some do. We do a lot of agents' websites. Put it on your website. Have a page for FAQs, and they could be videos. A couple other things that come to mind. So that's the FAQ. Then the testimonials. That's where I really enjoyed sending you out. But I guess worst case scenario is, again, I could get my camera when Bill comes in to make his insurance payment and say, Bill, would you mind if I got a video? Were you kind of saying some stuff? And if the customers love you, even though they might not want to do it, they're more likely to do it the more they love you. And I think you could say, Bill, just 30 seconds. Just say a couple. How long you been working with us? What kind of insurance do you have? What's it been like? What's your experience been like? They don't have to practice. It doesn't have to be perfect. Do the same thing with that. Put it on YouTube. Put it on your website. But here's a couple other things that we've done with you. And it's interesting. Man, all this stuff ties together, and I can already tell we're going to run out of time before I get through everything I want. We're going to have to do a part 2 one day, okay? So we just acquired another company, Brad. We inked the deal Thursday, I think, Thursday or Friday this past week. It'll be effective 4/1. And now I can talk about the name of the company. I couldn't talk about it for the last 2 or 3 months during due diligence, but the company name, it's based in Miami. It's Agency Marketing Machine.
Wow.
And they do marketing for insurance agencies, just like that's one of the things that we do at Jenesis. Besides agency management system, we also do marketing. They've got this platform. I want to show it to you one day. They got this platform, and one of the components of the platform is you pull up the screen as the agent. So we're selling this to our agents, and they've got their customers. And the agent types in something on this little screen. It's essentially like a YouTube search of FAQs. And it asks the question, and I think it gives some suggested answers or something like that on that screen. And then you click a button with your webcam, and it records you without, so you're not doing this, you're just doing it on that little platform. Then you click finish and click another button, and it uploads it to YouTube, to your, it's connected through an API with your YouTube channel and your other social media, Instagram and all that, Facebook. And it populates those platforms. And it can put it on your website or create the code maybe that gets embedded on your website. But that's kind of cool based on kind of what you were just talking about a while ago. It's just ironic that just happened the other day. Yeah. But here's the reason I tell you the story more than anything. When Lisa and I have met after the deal was signed, then we could meet with all the rest of the team. Do you know what? I think maybe not all, but just about every team member that Lisa and I met with to kind of welcome them one-on-one. Because that's a scary time. Your company gets acquired by another company. Absolutely. Like, am I going to lose my job? And what are they like? And are they nice? You know what? Almost every one of them said, Brad, this is kudos to you too. They said, we went to your website. We found the video that you've got on your website where all your team members are talking about what it's like to work at your company. Do you remember? You know the video, right? You've done a couple of those, absolutely. And we've updated them over the years.
Absolutely, we have. We updated, yeah.
They said, watching that video made me want to come work for you.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That's cool. That was because of what the people said about your company more than my putting it together.
It's a collaborative effort. But my real point is I think every insurance agency should do that. I think every insurance agency should have this video that says, here's what it's like to work here. And Brad, if I'm a one-person operation, I still should have that video.
Absolutely.
I want people to come work for me. Here are my values. Here's my mission statement. They could talk about that, And as you know, those videos, and people can go to genesissoftware.com right now and find those videos. People that are watching this podcast, people can go to YouTube and look for Jenesis Software channel and find those videos we're talking about. They were not scripted. So what we've always told people after been working with you for so long is we say, this guy Brad's going to do this video. And nowadays, we hadn't even talked about this, but nowadays you do this thing where they download some software on their phone. We send them a tripod. They set it up on their desk. We give them a little lapel mic, and they have to prepare zero. Because all you say is, I don't know, what's your name and what's your position and how long you've been there and what's the culture like there? What's the leadership like there, right? You ask those prompting questions, and they're just answering the questions. It takes so much pressure off of them trying to be perfect, and the outcome is golden. So anyway, team videos, I think, is a big deal. And I believe the other thing you've done for us, and maybe that was maybe an effort that kind of went together, I don't remember. But on our About Us page at Jenesis, each person not only has a written bio, but we've got a video. Was that done together? Did we create that video and then put that together in the company video, you think, or do you remember?
Yeah, I think what we did is we did those individual ones with the idea that there would be an individual one and there'd also be one that included everybody.
Yeah.
Because we ask a variety of questions. And as you were saying, we don't give them the questions. You gave me some questions, but I tell them, I don't even really have questions. You and I are just going to chat, and I've got some bullet points. And that's the biggest thing. If they get questions beforehand, they try to memorize sound bites. And it's like, that's the worst possible thing. So I have never in any of the different interviews that I do, and I do tons and tons of them all the time, every week, tons this week so far. I never give them the questions. I just, no. You and I are just going to chat. And then from that, I'm going to grab a bunch of sound bites, right?
Right.
And it'll be fine. So, and then half the time they don't even know that that's the interview, and then we're done, and they say, okay, so when are we going to start? It's like, we're done. So it is, I think we did those individually, and then you've got the content and you can put stuff together in a variety of forms. And I think that's what we found after the fact. It's like, you know what, we got a lot of great stuff here. Let's take some of the people responding to what's the culture like there, some of the people responding to, other different, the transparency, all of those different things about the company, and sort of put them together into something that you see all their faces here and there, but, answering a variety of questions that any person may have about what's this company like, and especially if you get into a situation where you're hiring, you want people to see that and know that they can feel great about making that career change.
Right. And it's probably true of most businesses. It's actually not true of Jenesis. We have a, 30-something people. We don't have an opening right now. We don't have any trouble finding people. We're blessed to keep a lot of really, really good people. And it's funny thinking back, there's people that's been here longer than you and I've even worked together. But many insurance agencies that I talk to struggle with finding good talent and keeping good talent.
Yeah.
So I think a video like this can go a long way, because I think you want people to want to work for you because of your values and your work ethic, the contribution you're making to your community, and how you serve your customers, more than you want them to come to work for you because of how much you're going to pay them.
Right.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. And the other thing about that is the fact that good people are probably doing well, are doing well where they are. And they're probably, you want people who are successful to work for you, and they've got options. So it's not, for them to be able to look at your company and say, that's the one that I want to go to, because I know that this is what it's going to be like. They've probably done very well, and maybe they've made great money, but at the same time, there's some motivation for them to want to seek out something that's more, something that's a little greater than just that. And that cultural thing, man, I mean, that is so critically important. It's like, what does it feel like to work there? That's a huge, huge thing for people that are trying to build a career, and so I think I think, like you said, every company needs something like that.
I agree. As I'm kind of glancing at my notes a little, I wish we had more time.
You have notes?
Yeah. Oh, I've taken
That's
notes.
the thing you've prepared.
Well,
I haven't prepared.
And I told Misty, my assistant, before you and I got on the call, she and I sat down 30 minutes before, and I did make some handwritten notes about just categories, kind of bullet points. We even talked about it. I normally don't do that because normally 90% of my interviews are agents.
Exactly.
And I kind of know what I'm going to ask them, and yours was a different thing because I wanted to think, how is this going to apply? How are insurance agencies watching this going to get value? So I kind of want to make some notes, but I did mention this. If people will create the content either through their phone or hiring someone like you or someone in their area, if they're not, in this area, or you do a lot of remote stuff like we talked a minute ago, and we talked about they can put it on YouTube and put it on their website, but also I think things like newsletters, outbound email that hopefully agencies are using for marketing to their customers and to prospects. That's a great place to kind of promote, the video stuff that's being done. So I just want to mention that I had that in my notes. Has AI changed much about what you are doing right now?
It hasn't yet.
Okay.
And I have thought, by the time I was really getting into doing this full time, I thought, I'm just concerned, that something like that somebody's going to write a great program that's going to be able to just go bang, 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 and just take sound bites and just jam them together and do all this stuff. And it's like, but it never really kind of happened yet. I mean, you can go into AI and say, I want something that says this, 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 and has these images, and it'll put together something for you, and generally it's kind of easy to tell what it is. But there's still this concept of actually getting somebody on camera, knowing what your particular message is, not just the message that that's the general message that every business tries to get across, but there are very specific things that differentiate you from someone else. Because people have options, right? People have all sorts of options. It's like, it's up to you to tell them, why are you different from the other 27 people that came up on the Google search that they did? Why do they want to work with you as opposed to anyone else? And I just find it really hard for there not to be a human brain and sensibility behind that to sort of help identify that for people.
Right.
I think for the time being, AI might have some benefits for I just can't think of them really, directly in terms of what we're doing specifically now, and into the future, who knows what AI is going to impact. It could impact almost every kind of business.
Yeah, I think you're right. I watched a YouTube video, ironically, within the last week, and this guy was talking about something that was interesting to me. And actually, I had a podcast guest, very successful insurance agent owner recently, who was telling me about one of the things he's done over the years very successfully is worked with YouTube influencers. So, you have an influencer that has an audience, and if you're selling, for example, insurance to that market, then you go to that influencer and they promote you. Man, the leads can pour in. But this guy the other night on this video I was watching was interesting. And I don't remember the word. I wrote down a minute ago, internal influencer, but I don't think that was the right word. But what he meant was, and he's used a different word, but be your own influencer. He said that's growing in popularity. And so insurance agencies, and by the way, I think all businesses should use bunch of different marketing strategies, and don't just pick one. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely.
But if you can find an influencer, if you're niche down and you can find an influencer there, go for that. But if not, do the things that we were talking about earlier. Get on camera, be yourself, be natural, because you can do you like nobody else can. And if you want to differentiate yourself from your competition, be you, because they can't be you.
Absolutely.
But get on camera, let them know what's important to you. If faith is important to you, that kind of comes out, and that's your personality. If sports is a big deal, let that come out. If hobbies, let that come out. But I just thought that was interesting that guy, and he had a name for it, but says that's kind of a big thing that he sees coming is more and more influencers coming out of for their own business.
Yeah. And, you're probably you're probably, and I'm guessing that probably most of the agents out there are doing business within within kind of a community, an area that they probably serve, and being totally in touch. Like Mooresville High School, their basketball team just went to the state finals. They lost the state final, but they got to the state final.
Right.
The basketball team, sorry. And it has nothing to do with insurance, right? But if you're in this community and you're somebody that goes and you put that out on your socials, hey, I just want a huge shout out to, on this, just being really plugged into the kinds of things that interest a variety of people. You were talking about, like, if you're into sports or if you're into fishing or something like that, have them see you do something, because there's a market behind that. You're going to connect personally with people that are interested in those same kinds of things. So yeah, absolutely.
And don't try to be something you're not, because
exactly.
all of this can be hard. This video stuff we're talking about can be hard, but it makes it a lot easier when you're just yourself. And when you don't edit, and when you don't do 2 and 3 takes. I never do 2 and 3 takes. Lisa laughs at me. I'm a 1-take guy on everything. And that doesn't mean that it's always perfect, by the way. No, it just means that my standards are a little lower, I guess. So I don't know if you know this, but just within the last month, I released my second book. And
I bought it.
Oh, did you really? Thank you.
Absolutely. I most certainly did. And I got the second
Thank you. Thank you for supporting me.
You got it.
So now go leave me an Amazon review, please.
Yeah, I will.
I'd love
I've
that.
got it right here on my phone,
love that.
as a matter of fact.
But there's, I don't know if you've got to, but there's a little section on video in there.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely there is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So listeners, get a copy of the book, The Independent Insurance Agent's Guide to Branding and Growth. It's on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller. It was within 24 hours of it being released. Proud of that. And it's got a section on video that would be helpful. Also, Brad, is your workload bandwidth? Are you still working? Are you doing 100% of your work by yourself, or do you have a small team now, or just you? And
I always thought that there would be parts of it that I would just, I'm going to farm out like a graphics, or I'm going to farm out. I haven't farmed out anything hardly in 20 years of doing it. I pretty much do the whole thing myself, and that's kind of part of my business strategy.
What is your bandwidth now? And I ask that because if people are watching this and they say, I might want to get a price from Brad to do something, what's your geographical? Well, some of this stuff you can do, we're doing online now. You've done a lot of stuff for us. You've done many interviews for us, people all over the United States.
Just like this.
Yeah, all over the United States. So what is your bandwidth, first of all? Are you slammed, or should people contact you if they want to consider using you?
Anybody can contact me at any time.
Okay.
And BradHarveyCreative.com. If you want to go to my website, you can find contact information or whatever. BradHarveyCreative@gmail.com. That's my email address. But absolutely happy to talk to anybody about doing stuff, or even just, chatting if they want to, like, some advice or whatever, and they think that I can help them. I've been insanely busy the last 3 months for some reason. I have no idea why suddenly this year I've been good, steadily busy, but for some reason, the last 3 months have been kind of crazy. But I can always fit in other stuff,
I will say, Lisa and I have said this for years. I bet we've told you before, but I don't want you to take it lightly, even whether we have or not. We think you're one of the nicest people we've ever met. We think that you have a way about you, and it just works so well, by the way, for how you've helped us. Because when we have somebody that you're going to interview, we know that we're putting them in your hands and that they're just going to come away from that thinking that's easy. But more than that, man, when I've talked to you on the phone over the years about this or that, or talk about an idea or a strategy, that's all I want to say. You're one of the nicest people we've ever met. We really look up to you and we appreciate you.
Yeah. That means a tremendous amount to me. And I enjoy talking to the people, when I have, people are like, well, I'm really freaked out about doing this. I'm like, please don't be, because I promise you it's the easiest thing you're going to do all day.
Right.
And you and I are just going to chat. And I just really enjoy meeting all these people. All the people you have that I've gotten to talk to that work for you have just been spectacular people. I mean, they're just really, really cool people.
Yeah.
So it's fun to do.
I agree with that part too. Brad, thank you so much for your time. I've just put away my book because we're out of time, but we'll do it again down the road if that's okay, and do a part 2.
Any old time. I look forward to it.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Insurance Agency Success Podcast, where independent insurance agencies like you get the tools and insights to grow, streamline, and enjoy your business. And if you're ready to simplify and scale, visit genesissoftware.com, Genesis with a J, and click on the orange button to request a demo. I appreciate you being here. Keep growing, keep building, and I'll see you next time.